All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. It's about 3:02. Just good afternoon and welcome to the Graduation Pathways Refresher. I'm Ben Carter, the Director of Workforce Innovation here at the Indiana Department of Education. During this webinar, I will provide an overview of the graduation pathway requirements, share a few updates, and explain some resources that are available to support your efforts. A few logistical items before we begin. First, this presentation will be recorded and posted on the Grad Pathways webpage. In addition, I will be sending the presentation and recording out to those that registered for the event. If you'd like to access the presentation before then, please use the presentation link. You should see that right there on the first page. At the end of the presentation, I will provide some time for questions through the chat box. There are a large number of participants, so we're just going to have to address those as we're able. But you can see the presentation link. It's a bit.ly/G, and then refresh. It is case sensitive, so make sure that the capital G and P. And then I'll post that link at the end as well as sending it out to all the registrants. When considering graduation pathways, you should remember the phrase 3 to succeed. In order to graduate, a student must complete at least one requirement in each of the 3 grad pathway areas. A student must earn credits, learn and demonstrate employability skills, and meet at least one post-secondary ready competency. Earn credits. In the first bucket of graduation pathways, a student must earn credits associated with at least one of the 4 diploma designations: Core 40, Academic Honors, Technical Honors, or General. Each designation has a specific number and type of credits required. Learn and demonstrate employability skills. In the second bucket of graduation pathways, a student must demonstrate that he or she has developed employability skills. Employability skills are a group of essential abilities that involve the development of a knowledge base, expertise level, and mindset that is increasingly necessary for success in the modern workplace. The Indiana Department of Education and the Indiana Department of Workforce Development have developed a list of 18 employability skills that are critical for students' future success. These skills are lifelong learning, self-confidence, self-discipline, independence, perseverance, time management and organization, adaptability, integrity, professionalism, effective communication, decision-making, initiative, attention to detail, problem-solving, aptitude awareness, connection, regulation, and collaboration. That link in the presentation is a link to the employability skills poster. You can see partly a portion of it cut out. We are planning to send 3 to 4 of these posters to your school, so you should receive those sometime this fall. But you can access that employability skills poster using that link already. To successfully complete this portion of graduation pathways requirement, a student must learn and demonstrate employability skills by completing a project-based, service-based, or work-based experience. These experiences are validated by the school via a student work product. Successful completion means an experience and a student work product. I like to think of the student work product as the evidence the school keeps to substantiate that the experience took place. Before diving deeper into the experiences, I want to answer a few frequently asked questions. What is the work product that is required? Examples include, but are not limited to, presentation, letter of recommendation, letter of employment verification, resume, reflection, experience, portfolio, videos, papers, etc. Ultimately, the work product is what you're going to use at the school level to verify that the experience took place. And this is what you'll keep on file at the school. When can these experiences begin? They can begin anytime between July 1 prior to freshman year through September 30th prior to submission of the graduate report. And they can happen anytime during the school day, after school, during breaks, during summer break, etc. How long do they have to last? There is not a set number of hours for an employability skills experience. Schools and districts must ensure the experience has quality, scope, and value for the student. How do schools validate completion of the requirement? By evaluating the student's product and tracking completion of the experience on the student's transcript or through the school's student information system. How do I know if my experience satisfies the requirements? Each experience must be aligned to a specific set of design principles listed in the policy guidance document. And I'm going to go into those each in more in depth in this presentation. Can courses be used to satisfy this requirement? In the policy guidance document, courses lending themselves to executing the design principles of each experience are listed, though completion of the courses alone does not fill this requirement. However, these experiences are not limited to these courses alone. If a student's experience or course curriculum aligns to the design principles of any of the employability skills experiences, then that experience will qualify for this requirement. Ultimately, there are some courses that lend themselves as a better vehicle for helping to facilitate an employability skills experience, but that list is not comprehensive. The key point is ensuring that if you have an experience embedded within a course at your school, that experience meets the specific design principles aligned to either a project, service, or work-based experience. Here are a few examples of experiences that a student might participate in to complete the Learn and Demonstrate Employability Skills requirement. Courses, part-time employment, a school-based enterprise, apprenticeship, internship, a career and technical student organization such as FFA or HOSA, athletics or after-school programs such as marching band. Oftentimes I'm asked about extracurricular activities. Extracurricular activities can satisfy the Learn and Demonstrate Employability Skills requirement. A student must participate in a meaningful way, which we've determined is a full season of participation or approximately a year of participation in the club. And a student work product is still required. We'll discuss the extracurricular activities a little bit more in the service-based learning component of employability skills. So I've shared a few frequently asked questions as it relates to bucket number 2, Learn and Demonstrate Employability Skills. Now I want to share some information about the experiences themselves. As I shared before, to successfully complete this portion of the graduation pathway requirement, a student must learn and demonstrate employability skills by completing a project-based, service-based, or work-based experience. These experiences are validated by the school via a student work product. Successful completion means an experience and a student work product. I'm going to take a more in-depth look at the experiences. Project-based experience, or a project-based learning experience, a PBL. In this experience, the PBL must align to the Buck Institute for Education's gold standard PBL design principles. They're now called PBL Works. You can see those linked in the presentation, and again, at the end of this presentation, I will share the link so that you can access the presentation, and I will also with all registrants. As we move around the wheel, starting with a challenging problem or question. The project is framed by a meaningful problem to be solved or a question to answer at the appropriate level of challenge. Then to sustain inquiry. Students engage in a rigorous extended process of posing questions, finding resources, and applying information. Authenticity. The project involves real-world context, tasks and tools, quality standards or impact, or the project speaks to personal concerns, interests, and issues in the students' lives. Student voice and choice. Students make some decisions about the project, including how they work and what they create. Moving to reflection. Students and teachers reflect on the learning, the effectiveness of their inquiry and project activities, the quality of student work, and obstacles that arise and strategies for overcoming them. Critique and revision. Students give, receive, and apply feedback to improve their process and products. And finally, public product. Students make their project work public by explaining, displaying, and/or presenting it to audiences beyond the classroom. As long as your experience meets each of these design principles, then it is approved to count for the Learn and Demonstrate Employability Skills requirement. We have some examples of projects on our graduation pathway website, but on the PBL Works site, you will also find hundreds of different project examples that they've labeled as Gold Star projects. So it's a great place to look to see how to structure a particular project-based unit. Service-based experiences must adhere to the National Youth Leadership Council's K-12 learning standards. Service-based learning goes well beyond volunteer hours or a day of service. Service-based learning, much like a project-based learning or PBL, is an approach to teaching and learning with specific design principles. The first is meaningful service. Service learning activities engages participants in a meaningful and personally relevant service activity. The second is linked to curriculum. Service learning is intentionally used as an instructional strategy to meet learning goals and/or content standards. You can find a list of these at that link, K-12 Service Learning Standards. It's on the web. It's on the presentation slide. The third is reflection. Service learning incorporates multiple challenging reflection activities that are ongoing and that prompt deep thinking and analysis about oneself and one's relationship to society. The fourth is diversity. Service learning promotes understanding of diversity and mutual respect among all participants. The fifth is youth voice. Service learning provides youth with a strong voice in planning, implementing, and evaluating service learning experiences with guidance from adults. The sixth is partnerships. Service learning partnerships are collaborative, mutually beneficial, and address community needs. The seventh is progress monitoring. Service learning engages participants in an ongoing process to assess the quality of implementation and the progress towards meeting specified goals, and uses the results for improvement and sustainability. And the eighth and final design principle for service-based experiences is duration and intensity. Service learning has sufficient duration and intensity to address community needs and meet specified outcomes. Again, those specific 8 design principles for service-based learning align really well to the project-based options, but they're also in that link. So the K-12 service learning standards, you're going to be able to find all of those design principles that I just shared. Work-based experiences follow design principles from the National Governors Association. There are 4 principles: clear work-based learning partnership agreement, authentic work experience component, structured learning component, and a culminating assessment and recognition of skills. I've linked the design principles there on the slide. A clear work-based learning partnership agreement, a clear articulation of the work-based learning partnership between the participant, the educational institution or intermediary organization, and the sponsoring employer. The agreement describes the terms and expectations of the experience, including learning objectives aligned with career pathways, duration, and the financial or education compensation afforded to the participant. Next, an authentic work experience component. Participants engage in an authentic work experience that is of value and relevant to the sponsoring employer partners and workforce needs. Participant is supervised and mentored in the completion of assigned projects. And finally, a structured learning component. Participants engage in structured learning activities to enrich and enhance knowledge, skills, and abilities. That includes curricula linked to the sponsoring employer's skills, needs, and the concept participants encounter in the workplace. So potentially content standards and/or employability skill standards. The State Board of Education approved several models of work-based learning. Those include registered apprenticeship, pre-apprenticeship/youth apprenticeship, a cooperative, an internship, on-the-job training, a school-based enterprise, employment, and additional recognized options, Governor's Work Ethic Certificate, Jobs for America's Graduates, JAG, JROTC, and Extended Lab or field experiences. A few weeks ago, the Indiana K-12 Work-Based Learning Manual was launched. This is a great resource for you as you begin to build out or develop your work-based learning program. The manual includes an introduction to the process by which the content was developed. It describes what work-based learning is, provides a continuum of experiences and definitions, 11 criteria for developing a high-quality work-based learning program, templates, and other resources as well. I encourage you to save that link and resource when considering work-based learning strategies. Now that we've covered learn and demonstrate employability skills requirements and graduation pathways, we are ready to move on to the final requirement, post-secondary ready competencies. There are 9 options for post-secondary ready competency. In order to fulfill this requirement, a student must meet at least one of the 9 competencies. Honors diploma. Fulfill all the requirements of either the academic or technical honors designation. ACT, currently an 18 in English, a 22 in reading, a 22 in math, and a 23 in science. These standards are set, these college-ready benchmarks are set by ACT. Students must meet at least 2 of the 4 score requirements, either the 18 in English or 22 in reading, and either the 22 in math or 23 in science. So one of the scores must come from English and reading, and one of the scores must come from math and science. A student can superscore, so if they earn a score on the first time they take it and they meet one of the scores, and then the next time they meet the other score, you can combine those 2 to meet this requirement. Tests that are taken outside of the school day will qualify. As long as the student earns a score that meets the requirement, those count as well. Same thing with SAT. Currently a 480 in evidence-based reading and writing and a 530 in math. Students must meet the individual scores in each subject. The ASVAB, earning at least the minimum ASQT score to qualify for placement into one of the branches of the U.S. military. The minimum score a student must earn is 31. Individual branch scores are the following. Army is a 31, Marines is a 31, Navy is a 35, Air Force is a 36, and Coast Guard is 45. We just recently, on September 12th, conducted an ASVAB Career Exploration Program training session, and we will be posting that in the next week or 2 on our Grad Pathways website if you want to go a little bit more in depth on the ASVAB. State and industry recognized credential or certification. A student can earn a state-approved industry recognized certification. It is important to note that the list has been updated for the 2019 to 2020 school year. I've included the link in this presentation. I'm going to navigate to this list to ensure everyone knows what they're looking at. Just want to double check. So now I've navigated to the Indiana Department of Workforce Development, Indiana's promoted industry certifications. When you look on that page, you're going to go ahead and see 2 different documents, a 2019-2020 promoted industry certification list. When you click on that, you'll see the list of industry certifications that are promoted, and then there's another link here and another picture that has removed certifications for the 2019-2020 school year. So if there are some certifications that you see are missing, then what you might want to do is click on that, remove certifications, and check to see that the rationale that the Department of Workforce Development has provided as to why that certification has been removed or no longer is, or is part of that. So that's a good resource there, and that's been updated recently. Okay, now I'm transitioning back to the presentation. You should see that post-secondary ready slide again. I think another important point to note is that the student is earning an industry certification, that must be entered in the INTER system, the Indiana Technical Education Reporting System. I've included a link in this presentation which can take you to more information and the contact person for that system. The next is a federally recognized apprenticeship. You can find that list of federally recognized apprenticeships posted on the DOE's website. The one thing about the federally recognized apprenticeship is that the apprenticeship must begin while the student is in high school. This isn't something that they've been accepted to, but this is something that they're starting either their junior or senior year. Career and technical education concentrator. So a student must earn a C average in at least 2 non-duplicative advanced courses, which is linked there, courses beyond an introductory course, within a particular program or program of study. The list of advanced courses is linked in this presentation. I'm going to try to navigate again to that site just so you're aware of what you're looking at. When you click on the link, it will take you to the Office of CTE, Office of Career and Technical Education webpage. So on this page, when you reach Indiana Career and Technical Education Pathways, you're going to see a couple different lists. The first list is the Perkins 4 definition, which is the 6th credit definition. Students can utilize this definition up through the class of 2022. Your class of 2023, which is the Perkins 5 definition, they have to use this particular definition, and that's the 2-course definition. So you can see links to the different courses. You can also see a couple important pieces. There's some Perkins concentrator guidance. And then if you scroll down to the bottom of this page, you'll also see an FAQ document, Concentrator Course Sequence FAQ and Guidance. There are some great FAQs in there. There's some great guidance from the Office of Career and Technical Education. And then you can also see underneath that, the second bullet point underneath resources at the bottom of that page is the Concentrator Course Sequence webinar. The Office of Career and Technical Education that oversees this has provided a webinar that goes a little bit more in depth about those 2 lists that are at the top of the page. And so if you're interested, I would recommend checking out the frequently asked questions document and that webinar for further in-depth information. So jumping back over to the presentation, just want to make it clear that the Office of CTE is no longer with the Indiana Department of Education. They now reside with the Governor's Workforce Cabinet. So I just wanted to be sure everyone was clear. I linked it there. Office of CTE is linked, so you can get to their website. And then the other piece that I just wanted to make everyone aware of is that the Office of Career and Technical Education published updates to the 2019-2020 course titles and descriptions guide in the August State Board meeting. So this guide, it's linked there on updates, provides more information about what's been changed from required to recommended. So there's a little more flexibility. So I would suggest taking a closer look at some of the updates if you haven't already done so. AP, IB, dual credit, Cambridge International courses, or CLEP exams. A student must earn a C average or higher in at least 3 courses. There's 2 different options here. One option is that all of those 3 courses are within a single career and technical education pathway. For instance, if you're offering an engineering pathway, all of your dual credit courses that student earns, those 3 courses are within that singular engineering pathway. The other option, if there's kind of a smattering of dual credit courses, at least one of those classes needs to come from the core transfer library, which I've linked there. And so at least one of the classes must come from the core transfer library. It doesn't matter necessarily where the other 2 come from. So it's important. There's those 2 options for AP, IB, dual credit. And if you have questions about that, obviously you can email me and I'll help to explain it in further detail. For AP and IB, students do have to take the test. They have to take the exam, but they do not have to earn a specific score on that particular test. And then I've also linked the CTE technical dual credit crosswalk, which gives you those lists of career technical education courses in case all 3 of your courses fall within a singular CTE pathway. On this page as well, I've linked dual credit. So you see that dual credit is actually linked. I've linked it to the FAQ document that the DOE publishes in concert with the Commission for Higher Education. I think it's important for you to be aware of that dual credit FAQ. One of the FAQ questions was updated last year, and it involves graduation pathways. So it's number 28. What does it mean to satisfy the dual credit post-secondary competency in graduation pathways? It talks about what high schools must do in terms of having an MOU with the post-secondary provider, and then it talks about what students must do. Obviously, earning a C average across the 3 classes, that's part of the policy guidance document. Meeting the prerequisite requirements for the high school course, which is from the state-approved course titles and descriptions guide. And then if there are any courses that the college, per the MOU that you have with them, is saying need to be completed before entering the class, those would need to be done as well. And then the final part, that a student must meet the entrance requirements for the college course, if that's an AccuPlacer, GPA, et cetera, in order for it to count. The final post-secondary ready competency option is the locally created pathway. These are separate pathways and require a separate application along with the state board approval. The application window for new locally created pathways will open sometime in early spring. Last year, it opened March through the end of April. The links on this page will take you to an information page for locally created pathways, where you can find more information and a webinar on the application process. You will also see the 3 approved pathways: the Civic Arts pathway, an RV maintenance pathway, and the one that was approved last year is the aviation sheet metal pathway. Any of these 3, now that they've been approved, can be adopted by your school, but you must complete the form linked on this slide and on that web page in order to use the pathway for students at your school or in your district. The form is pretty quick to fill out. It notifies the DOE and the State Board of Education that you're adopting the pathway. You must do that before using it. The form also asks what components of the pathway you're going to change, and then you'll receive a follow-up email within 1 to 2 days after completing that form from me, letting you know a few extra specifics about adopting that particular pathway. So those are options are available for you. And we also have a guidance document which provides the nitty-gritty of those pathways. If you want to adopt one of the pathway, what are those basic things that you have to include? What courses do students have to take? What experiences do they have to have? What do the partnerships look like? And then finally, what type of product are students going to work on, or what type of credential are they going to earn through that particular pathway? Those are included as well. So in terms of tracking, for credits, those are tracked through the student's transcript. For learning and demonstrating employability skills, just to reiterate, the student is going to have that experience, and the school verifies that experience and keeps evidence of that experience on file at the school via the student work product. The student work product isn't something that's been produced by the student. It could be a letter of employment verification. It could be a letter of recommendation. There are a lot of options that I listed previously in the presentation and that are in the policy guidance document that you can view. For the post-secondary ready competency, it depends on which particular competency that student is working towards meeting, but once they've met it, you'll need to keep evidence that they've met it. If it's a specific list of courses, for instance, career and technical education courses, obviously those would need to be entered in INTERS. They would be reflected on the student's transcript. If it was dual credit courses, those would be reflected on the student's transcript. If it was a specific test score from an ACT or SAT, those you would need to keep that score report in the student's file, or that also could be reflected on the student's transcript. And then as well for the industry certifications, that would be the certification score and official score report that's kept on file for that student from that certifying agency. So just to kind of wrap it up, it's important to remember the 3 to succeed. You're earning credits associated with one of the 4 diploma designations. The student is learning and demonstrating employability skills, and that's verified through the student work product. And finally, they're meeting one of the 9 post-secondary ready competencies. If they've met all of those requirements, then they are good to graduate. The other component is the graduation pathways waiver. So for instance, if a student is unsuccessful in the post-secondary ready bucket, a student could potentially earn a waiver. So they still need to complete their credits. They still need to have an employability skills experience with that work product. But if they are unable after multiple attempts to successfully meet one of the post-secondary ready competencies, they would be eligible for a graduation pathway waiver. They have to attempt 3 separate post-secondary ready competencies. So that, for instance, would be an ASVAB, an SAT, an ACT, or an industry certification, 3 separate ones. And in order for a student, there are some other requirements too, like 95% attendance. They have to ensure that they've done all those required credits. We have a tracking sheet on our website, on the Grad Pathways website. At the bottom of the page, we have a tracking sheet for the waiver as well, which you can see step by step what's included and required of that kiddo for a graduation pathway waiver. So I'm going to give you my contact information, then I'll start going through some of the questions. Again, that's my email address. And then you can see the website for graduation pathways, which we have a lot of great resources. And again, some of that reporting and tracking, some of those tools are at the bottom of the website. You'll also see